All right, everyone. Today on the show, we have Garrett Russell. So, Garrett is an OG on the ski scene and has been part of the Traveling Circus from the very beginning. In this episode, we talk about growing up in Telluride, moving up to Mammoth at the height of that whole scene, working in Argentina, working in Japan, and a bunch of behind the scenes with TC. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at twoplankerpod. As always, if you like the show, be sure to subscribe and give us a rating. That's all for the intro. See you guys next week. Who are you and what do you do?
How's it going? My name is Garrett Russell. I am from Telluride, Colorado. I like to ski, I guide, and create art on the mountains. Sure, yeah.
Word.
I would like to consider myself an artist, but this is Garrett Russell. What's up?
Here we go. So Garrett, I'll be honest, when I hit you up, I just knew you as the guy that was occasionally in Traveling Circus. But the more research I did, there's a lot of different aspects to you. I found the video series, The Garrett Russell Experience, and it was great. I didn't know any of that stuff about you, so I think maybe we'll do like a little bit of walkthrough of some of the stuff that was covered there, if that's cool with you.
I'm down. Yeah, I would be
Awesome.
interested to see how you perceive it in that time retrospect. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start out with what was it like growing up in Telluride, and maybe what does the Alta Lakes Observatory mean to you?
So I got pretty damn lucky to grow up in Telluride. Most people are like, you grew up in Telluride. I did. Um, my mom doesn't really ski. My dad, they call him straight line Jim because he couldn't turn. But my brother, who is 4 years older than I am, got me into skiing, more or less. Like it was hockey or skiing. And we're doing moguls because that's how it's full of giant moguls. And some of the kids I grew up with don't even understand how powerful and amazing those mountains are. The San Juans are some of the most dangerous snowpack in the world. And my parents built this cabin on the backside of Telluride, which in hindsight becomes literally the backside of Telluride. And I grew up humbled by the mountains, but as well loved park skiing because of like Tanner Hall and like not um, conforming to mogul skiing like my brother did. And he was a big mountain skier. He still is. He does shit that scares the fuck out of me. Um, but that was his path. And so I chose to ski park. And Telluride actually had one of the better parks in the forefront of USSA and all skiing Mecca. And that was due to just creativity and people later on I'll mention.
So were you one of those kids that was on skis basically from the moment you could walk?
I started skiing at 2 years old. Um, and there was a moment where skiing didn't mean that much to me and I didn't even realize, but I still have some of the first memories on snow at that age, which is wild. Um, but at one point, I just remember, not gonna lie, smoking weed with some friends and going out in the woods at 14, and like that was the most magical thing. And it was just like snowing. And we're on the bump club, and like my coaches were all smoking weed, but they wouldn't know that. You want to talk about that. Um, but that's when it really just clicked how magical and special this environment that I was in. It was either moguls or racing, right? So my brother and I, we grew up skiing moguls because the rich kids would do TART, Telluride Alpine Racing Team, which was like my family, we didn't have enough money to uh, afford the racing equipment, but mogul skiing was affordable, but it also, I had, not gonna lie, it made me a better skier. I mean, I know racers can go fast, but let's talk about snowboarding and like how much more creative they are is because of going slow and reading the mountain in a different way. And later on, I grew up with mostly snowboarders in the Dream Park, and that's kind of where I learned my style of skiing.
And when so what how old were you when you made that transition like all right, screw the moguls, I'm going to go chill with the snowboarders in the park and, start hitting rails, whatever these are.
It was 14. It was pretty much when slopestyle just started. So this could have been like 1996. I don't even know, but at this time, you'd have to do aerials, ballet, and moguls to go to qualifiers and be a professional or not. There was no such thing as professional skiing. It was like it was Tanner Hall, myself, and a handful of like the Canadians who were doing switch skiing. And snowboarding was taking off a little bit more beyond that. I remember there was a down flat down, which I don't think anyone hit on skis, but I totally hit it and broke my ribs. And 2 weeks later, I was like, oh yeah, no, that hurt because I broke my ribs. I was young, but it was at 14, I got the opportunity to either become like a professional or athletic mogul skier and go to the Olympics for that and deal with the bullshit that is up to people to judge, or be a creative skier and have fun,
Mhm.
which my friends were doing at snowboarding because they had nothing, um, no one to delegate. I mean, snowboarding was outlawed, or not outlawed, but just like kind of shunned upon, and no one knew how to control it.
Like a new fad taking over the scene that all the
Exactly.
adults
And
are
like
afraid of.
skiers, old time skiers wouldn't know how to handle the traversing or the side slipping. But luckily at 14, I decided not to snowboard. I kept with skiing, and I'm grateful I did ever since.
Hmm. And so, what were you like academically? Were you one of those kids that's just screw everything else? I like to ski, or were you ever thinking about doing like a straight and narrow type of deal?
So this is actually a great question. I was one of the first kids to do correspondence classes, and my senior year, I took second and third quarter off to go skiing every day at noon in the winter. And so by the time we got back to fourth quarter high school, I realized I totally sandbagged myself. Like I did not study as much as I could, but I self-taught myself. So Spanish and Algebra 2 were my two correspondence classes, fifth and sixth period I took off. Somehow, Spanish clicked. Algebra and math, even as a bartender, I suck at math. Let's just throw that out there. But like algebra, eh. Um, and I learned to cheat and passed with flying A's and made honor roll, but never went to
Really?
college. Yeah.
So, did you end up going to college after you graduated high school, or was that?
Nope. I very much moved straight to Mammoth at 18. And then in reality, I got DUI when I was 20, and I'd like to go to like Whistler or whatnot, but I wasn't allowed in Canada. So I started going to Argentina and started guiding.
Hmm.
And hindsight, 2020, was grateful to get that DUI, but also like that shit should never happen. But I was 20 years old in Mammoth and learned a lot from it. But I would never have made it to Argentina if I did not fuck
Yeah.
up.
So, I mean, to jump way ahead of the timeline to 2021, are you still prohibited from entering Canada, or is there like a
No,
statute
it
of
should be
limitations?
13 years, but it's been almost sadly 20 years. But I just haven't made it to Canada in a minute. Um, and would just hate to get to the frontier or the border and get turned away. I'm sure I'm allowed in. I have tons of friends who are in the same boat. Don't drink and drive, kids. Definitely do not do that. Pet Fujas wasn't allowed, but if you have enough money and you have the right paperwork, you can totally apply for these situations. And it was a hindrance in long term. Um, let's say with riding with Smith, I would be invited to these events in Canada, and I'll be like, "I'm sorry, I can't go. I'm not allowed." And they're like, "All right, on to the next athlete," which sucks. But I mean, those would have been awesome times, like the WSI competitions or whatever they did back in the day with like Andy Mayer doing zero spins, and yeah, I was never allowed into that on my own fault, but also I got to ski Argentina for 15 solid years.
Yeah. And so before we go deep on Argentina, so when did you start seeing success professionally as a skier? Was that pre Argentina? Was that like in high school? When was that?
Funny, I mean, this is a question. When do you consider a professional athlete a professional athlete? If you're getting free gear, if you're getting paid, whatnot. But at like 14, I was sponsored by Atomic and Helly Hansen and Smith. And that's like 14. This is like long time ago.
And was that for park
Actually,
skiing at the time?
it was more or less. And it was funny because I remember sending emails and being like, high school kid, like 110%, this is what I'm doing. Like, I just want to keep in touch. And they're just like, can you please stop emailing us? And I was like, well, what? Like, all right, done. And that's kind of when I realized personally, fuck that shit. Just go skiing and have fun and be with your friends. And like that whole entire corporate mentality turned me off and could totally have like led me astray from skiing. But I just wanted to like have fun and be outdoors with my friends.
Hmm. So you end up in Mammoth, and what was that like moving there at 18?
Moving to Mammoth at 18 was pretty much the time era of Mammoth was going off, right? So we have Pet Fuas, we have Tanner Hall, we have the Three Phils, Sarah Burke, and Roy Silva, and like Mammoth had Super Park, and that's when I applied to go to Bellingham, Washington, because they had the most amount of snowfall. I applied for philosophy and art. I did not get accepted, thankfully, in whatever hindsight, although I think art and philosophy are very important. I moved to Mammoth at 18. And after 4 years of tuning skis for a CIA agent at the Boot Doctors and mounting skis, I get to Mammoth and I have this job as a ski tech. And they're like, I still don't like mounting skis. I still don't like mounting my own skis. I was thrown into rentals. And rentals is hilarious. If anyone's a ski bum, you know, like you work at a ski shop and rentals is like the low end, but like I met some of my best friends in my life in ski rentals. And I moved to Mammoth and I couldn't afford a pass to Mammoth. So I got a pass to June Lakes. And I used to hike this S box. That was a classic wavy S box. Um, and then ski June. And later on in life, June was probably the sickest, biggest jumps known to man. Like when Gunsmoke was going on, but like June became my second home from Telluride. And this was all within the 2 years before I started going to Argentina. Um, Within those 2 years, I got that DUI, so I wasn't allowed into Canada or anywhere. Like New Zealand, I went to New Zealand when I was 18 because I went there when I was 16, theatrical bullshit. And New Zealanders were not that nice. Like I would do a 900 and lose to a 360 to Hamish Auckland. Sorry, Hamish, fuck you. But like a 360 is cool. But they would call me a Seppo, like just a dirty English Seppo or American Seppo. And when I first got to Argentina, like I was actually able to win competitions and they would respect tricks versus just your where you're from.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't realize that. Perhaps it's my ignorance of like the intricacies of the history of free skiing, but I didn't realize that Mammoth had such a gnarly scene, especially at the time that you were there.
It was pretty much if you weren't in Mammoth, these were the days of Freeze, right? Free Skier magazine. So like there was 8 people in the magazine all the time, all the time. It was the Three Phils, it was CR, it was Tanner, and a handful of others. But like it's so good to see it blow up. But it's sadly there's no more magazines. Thrasher skateboarding is still doing good, but skateboarding is easily accessible to everyone. But it was definitely very difficult to get into um, the magazines, if you weren't sponsored, if you weren't liked by the right people, it is kind of where I really appreciate the underground and wanted to create underground skiing,
And so,
which Traveling Circus kind of arrived from.
yeah. And so I'm assuming you're on the outside of that in group that you're just describing.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Um, and I would say I'd be in that group because if you, for me, I would do the same tricks in half pipe competitions. I used to be a big half pipe skier, but without the same sponsors or being 16 years old, I would never qualify onto the next thing and whatnot. And that's like, I'm not gonna lie, I have to be grateful for smoking weed and just being like, I'm just gonna ski and have fun. Like you guys are all taking it so seriously, you're making money and lifestyles off of it, but are you having fun? I don't know. Simon Dumont would hit the biggest quarter pipe, angry as fuck. Cool. Are you still skiing? No.
Yeah. And that's everyone talks about like the golden age of competitions when it was so exciting, but it seems like a lot of the same bullshit going on today was going on back then too, pay to play.
100%. But also like I'm so glad I don't have to like compete against that. Um but yeah, no, double corks. A 720 was huge. The switch to an 80 was like I can still do it every now and then, but like now in this day and age of competitions, you have to switch double cork both directions, forward, bio, and then hardest thing for me is like how do they judge style? The only way, in my opinion, you make it like gymnastics, so everyone does the same routine, and who does it more better.
Hmm.
It's difficult. I give props to all my friends who judge, but like it's still how do you judge style? Bruce Lee would be like, "What the fuck?"
So, so in the timeline, you're on the outs of the in crowd in Mammoth, but you're still stoked on the scene. You discovered Argentina through a competition, it seems like. So when did you first take the dive? Like, all right, I want to spend a season down there.
Um, I'm gonna retract a wee bit further if you don't mind. So like back in the day, I used to compete half pipe all the time, and that was like my focus, and was going to the Olympics, even though half pipe wasn't in the Olympics. That's when I realized how kind of jaded, and same with like the ski industry in itself. And Tanner, bless his soul, is one of the like smartest, shittiest, not no, the craziest geniuses I've met. But I don't think he does really good for the ski industry. But like he at 14 would do what people wouldn't do to make skiing what it is today in a way. And that was being a rebel. But in his lucky fortune situation, he had Kerry Miller, who would he was a good mogul skier, would give him connections and be like, "Hey, this kid's fucking the next top thing and whatnot." And so, like, one thing I learned over years is like, there's so many kids I met who are better than anyone else, but they just don't have the opportunity. And that's when I started to fall back from the competition and sponsor world. Although I need free gear to go skiing, go to Argentina and be like, yeah, or New Zealand, win competitions, but no one knows about that shit. And there's multiple hemispheres of great skiers, but it all depends on your politics. And after that, moving to Mammoth, I learned to hit jumps and ride park. And that's when I met Bernie Rosso and Rory and Chris and Willie Snyder. Like these kids, you don't like, no one knows who they are, but like, except for some of them. But it just takes time and well, compassion for the sport.
Word. So you learned to hit jumps, and then where does that take you? Because that's definitely a
It took
different
me
route
to
than doing the pipe.
a whole new level because Mammoth had this system where it was like you either ride the half pipe or you hit the jumps. And then I was like, these jumps are fucking amazing. They're 60, 70 foot. 50 at the time. That was like super big, but like half pipe is exhausting. You do 8 hits and you're beat. You could do 2 giant lofty hits and you want more. And like that's when I wanted to like jump more, although I'm not really a big jumper, but like we'll throw in Lonnie Kauk, who is one of my favorite snowboarders and best friends, and Chalone Miller. At these times I moved to Mammoth, I was mostly like growing up in Telluride. I had no skier friends because everyone was doing moguls or racing. So I had Wyatt Glenn, Noah Price, and we'd made a whole entire video, 121, Eat the Meek. Um, I grew up with snowboarders, so some of the first people I could bond with and relate with were snowboarders. That's Chalone Miller, bless his soul, and Lonnie Kauk is like just Lonnie's fucking native gangster. And then Pat Bridges would acknowledge my appreciation for snowboarding. I would imitate his tricks doing nose blocks and whatnot. So he would usually let me guinea pig all the girls super parks as well as like hit the jumps, because it's always good to have a skier hit snowboard jumps, right? Because we can go fast and we're those stupid fucks. But like Bridges would be in control of that and let us operate and send. And sometimes you oversend, you'd be like, girls, you gotta slow down. Do not hit that as fast as we did. Um, and that's when underground skiing and not worrying about competition and being famous in the magazine style world came to I just want to hang out and ski with snowboarders.
Yeah, that's awesome. And especially in those early days of discovering free skiing. Like that's huge. Of course, like you're not gonna turn to, you know, ballet skiers for your
Which
tricks now.
I had to do ballet, but like I still use some of those tricks. It's kind of like tip tip maintenance, and like I mean it's I had to do ballet acro for a long time.
Damn. And so the magazines were huge. Was the world familiar with the glory of ski movies yet in the free ski realm, or was it still just like the underground magazine scene?
Well, the ski movies at that time was like Blizzard of Oz and just like Rasa CV from Telluride and Scott Schmidt and like people traveling the world, and then they turn into like TGR and MSP and Poor Boys. But like Johnny would never give me a time of day because I didn't have the right crew or even Eric Iberg. It was just like it was just like it reminded me of high school. Um, but like the old school movies from the 80s, 90s, like those were iconic. And then 90s and whatnot was like what we grew up on. And I mean, they're on VHS. Who's watching that shit now? Sadly, I would love to watch more. I think we can find them, but it was for me, it was kind of like a battle to not conform.
And was that out of insecurity, or were you comfortable just doing your own thing?
I think I talked myself into my own thing. I mean, I think it was definitely kind of just you can say insecurity as like not being accepted into like a party at high school, and
Yeah.
you got the same skills, but like no one wants to hang out with you, so you're like, fuck you, I'm gonna ride snowboarders.
Yeah. And
Which
is that what drove you south, or
well, I mean, my best friend Skylar Holgate is killing it, one of the best snowboarders and guides in the world. He's the one who drove me south to South America, and we started pretty much South American snow sessions with John Sang Wilbur and opened up some shit.
yeah? So let's get into that. What was SASS or SASS, South American Snow Sessions? So
It's
you guys
an
created that?
it's an acronym within an acronym. It started off as South America Snowboard Sessions until I showed up. So then it was South America Snow Sessions because the first year they operated was John Sang, Skylar, and J Rags. 3 snowboarders, 3 clients. I roll up, fly into Argentina. I have no idea what I'm doing. I thought we are crashing into the fucking Andes. Have friends and family who help pick me up in Mendoza. Long adventure later. We'll tell you. I should write a book on that one. End up in Los Angeles. And so we operated in Los Angeles for 2 years, which would be 3 months out of two seasons, temporadas. And in those first 2 years, we went from like 10 clients to 30 clients. But what we realized is Los Angeles doesn't have any trees. So when it snows, it can snow and it can be windy. And you live there for 3 months, you'll ski 12 good days. And so when you have kids who are 16 and 17 years old and the drinking age is 18, and all we are doing is partying at the discoteca, what would you do? We partied and we skied when it was good, but like at this point, we were operating in the backcountry, and I don't know. I don't care what you say about front country, side country, back country. Los Angeles is all back country. It's all couloir skiing, but we're always skiing avalanche terrain. So teaching the kids how to use a beacon and using lift access is like very important to me. But I really think we got away with murder in those days.
Yeah. And so how old were you? What year was that you were first going down there?
20 years old.
Damn.
So this is 18 years ago. Um, my my beacon at the time was rusted through, so I would use aluminum foil from a gum wrapper and attach that so it could have a connecting point. Like, I mean, when I was growing up in Telluride, my dad would put a beacon on me, knowing that like no one's gonna find me if I get caught in an avalanche. But like that mindset is important. But fuck, dude. I mean, let's just say the people before me skiing didn't have beacons. They just choose wisely on their time of mountain approach, mountain ascending, descending, and got lucky. And that's what I think is really cool about this day and age, is actually educating people of like, why did you get lucky? How are we getting lucky? Or what could you have done better?
Yeah. So you're down in Argentina teaching a bunch of kids how to ride backcountry from the sounds of it.
Lots of kids from the East Coast,
Really?
all East Coast kids.
So was this like a tourist program? Are you like
No,
training
this is
professionally?
no, I mean, I think the best thing is that we create our own style, and this is pretty much what Silverton is operated off of. Is just actually like, it's not gung ho, but it's actual. You can read a fucking book and get your nose in science of something, but if you're not out there every day and putting your face in the snow and being aware of what's going on and making decisions with like previous experiences and whatnot, then it's like as a bartender, I'm never going to hire someone who's went to bartending school. I need them to be able to like interact with people, indulge, bar back, prep, and be efficient on their feet. Um, Guiding, I mean, we're pretty rogue at that time, but also Silverton is, I think, those they operate off of what pilots do, right? So airtime, hours in avalanche terrain. So if, let's say if I got 10,000 hours in avalanche terrain with clientele, then I would be an expert. I have not that much time, but I will exceed to that hopefully before I'm dead. But that's the mindset you want, of just being how to manage a group, yourself, the snow, the train. And so Skylar taught us all this shit. And he's the one who kind of like, he's him and like the crew I met in Los Angeles, Doug Kraus, they're heavy hitters in the snow safety realm. But I just want to throw one quote out there. I don't care how knowledgeable you are. If we're playing the mountains, we're all sub subject and suspect to nature.
Hmm. So in the summers, which is what I'll refer to as our summers, but it's still winter down there. So you're down there guiding tourists, learning how to be a better backcountry guide, and you're coming back up to the states to. What are you doing when you're coming back to the states? Because you're. It seems like you push competition to the side, and you're like, I just want to be a skier. I don't want to even be a competitive skier.
So I would compete in competitions in Argentina and win money so I could stay longer in Argentina and then come back and repeat winter, but not compete, but just ski. And that's kind of when Traveling Circus kind of hit heavy. And that was like the crew I most enjoyed hanging out with. But it's been 15 years. That was 15 years endless winter.
Yeah.
5 in Mammoth, 3 in Telluride, and then the rest up here in Tahoe. Kind of all blends together.
Hmm. So that period of your life where you started linking up with TC, how far into your Argentina adventure was that? Like
So
how many years were you just doing the Mammoth Argentina, Mammoth Argentina?
this is a real. I met Will and Andy and Ahmet and Gurai and Ross way before I was going to Argentina.
Wow.
Living with Benny Ryerson, and we had the ski hostel in Rom. He had Sublux clothing. He brought all these kids from the East Coast. And I'm 18, 19. Andy's like 16, 15. Will, we called him Silent Will. Um, they needed somewhere to stay, so they stayed on our floor. And I mean, it's kind of like the I hate New York days. This is before I was going to Argentina, or just that first year I was going. And yeah, no, I've known them longer than I've been going to South America. Crazy, right?
That is crazy. I gotta say the Silent Will nickname is pretty funny.
Oh man, if you get him on a roll, he will talk your ear off, but that's very rare. But we all like Bernie Rosso and I were living together and it was just like all these fucking kids. This is a good story. Rom had to pick up Ahmet because he was running for ninth ward, and whoever was running ninth ward shot himself in the hand and couldn't drive Ahmet to fucking cleaning his gun. So Rom had to go pick up Ahmet. So like Ahmet and Gurai and Andy and like they're just now 15 people at the ski house, which is like old Sarah Burke and the Three Phil's house, the 114. And that's kind of during the time, years later, 2 years later, 3 years later, Montage comes to play, if you know them.
No,
Sean
I don't believe
Logan.
so.
Yes, he did. No?
Montage?
Montage Inc. Chris
Montage
Logan,
Inc.
Sean Logan, Parker White,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Ben Wiltsey, Tanner Rainville, Malone, Mal One. And that's kind of like this is like when underground skiing was just like, fuck these competitions, fuck this fame, like let's go skiing. And this is like when carving off jumps, and Mammoth was like, we're starting our own style, or just our own ski career.
So when you met those traveling circus kids, aka the I hate New York kids at the time, when did that turn into TC? Because I mean, obviously you were clued into their journey a little bit since you saw them at such a young age.
um we we tried to film a pilot for Fuel TV multiple years later, let's say 3 years later, but they would keep coming back to Mammoth, Will and Andy, and like I would continuously always enjoy skiing with them because they're super creative and like they kind of fed off my kind of maybe creative style, but like inspiration from snowboarding and not being conformist to skiing as normal. Is like, all right, cool. Everyone could do a 360 mute grab. What about different grabs? What about all this? And like they, you can see a little bright-eyed, bushy-tailed inspiration from them. And they just kept coming back. So they just kept coming back and back. And uh multiple years later, we tried to film this pilot for Fuel TV, and we went to Colorado. And this is like the first year of Traveling Circus, which Will filmed and edited all himself. But like we didn't get it because skiing is not that cool. And like Lucas Magoon had his series on Fuel TV, which is honestly, could you imagine Andy Parry with tons of money?
I'm, I mean, I'm sure he'd like to imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But like, I don't think it would help anyone in the world. He's
Yeah,
so good as he is. I fucking love that kid.
yeah. And so at that time when you guys are really tapping into that creative energy, was it you influencing them influencing you, or was it kind of just both parties feeding off each other and just be like, let's get as creative as possible?
Well, I usually not to be egotistical, but I think I fucking fed them some creativity.
You smacked their like smacked it into their young heads like, hey, think about this differently. Like, don't be like
Yeah.
everybody else.
And they took it to another level. And I think even Ski Creative and Dan Meese, like, I have to give myself a pat back on the back every now and then, right? Like, we can all conform and drink the Kool-Aid or take whatever red, blue pill, but like, I fucks shit up.
What were some of your early innovations? Like, what was the standard, and how are you kind of working around it?
I think the best standards I avoided was being conformist mobile ski form style and just watching snowboarders and seeing what they could do and just how like skateboarding influenced me. I suck at skateboarding, but like skateboarding now is insane. Like in Thrasher and skateboard magazines, and it's all Tony Hawk video games. Like these kids and these people are doing shit you can only dream of. And as a skier, I could always wish I could imitate skateboard style and snowboarding, but you can't because you're on skis and you look like a total tool with two planks. But you could also not. And I honestly have to say, like snowboarding and skiing, well, mostly snowboarding and skateboarding and surfing inspired me to not conform to what is traditionally valued or respected. And that's like with all art,
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely. Yeah.
you have to take a step back and be inspired by nature or whatever is presented to you, but create your own way.
Mhm. Word. Wow, I didn't. I actually gotta admit, I did not know you had such a big influence on those "I Hate New York" guys. I really, I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean, for a moment of honesty, my perception was that they were an entity that existed, and then when
I
they were
just
already,
hopped in.
yeah, then you just hop in and join the crew. But it's really kind of almost the other way around a little bit.
And yeah, and you can ask him, but like that's a key of underground, the old grandfather, G Funk.
Oh God. So what were you thinking when TC was taken off? Like, were you really embedded with the crowd, or were you kind of touch and go with
TC
them?
has never taken off. We're so
Oh,
like,
come on, give it a little bit of
all
credit.
right. So here's, I mean, it's taken off, right? But like, um, Eric Pollard is the first one to create fucking webisodes and snowboarding and skateboarding and all things like hunting Eddie, and I got to be a part of that. But like that, that was genius in the mindset of like internet is going to be big, and then Will and Andy were just like, yeah, it's going to be big, and then next thing you know, everyone's making a webcast or like selling things online, which is the death of video, which is like internet killed the radio star. It's fucking awful. I miss fucking premieres and none of that happens anymore. No one has attention span for like an actual video or to go to a movie theater, especially with COVID. But even before then, it's just so sad,
It is.
in my opinion. Yes, sad. What was the question again?
uh, what were you thinking? Because you see these, you guys film for this Fuel TV pilot, and then turns out, okay, Traveling Circus actually has legs. It's going to go somewhere. Did you were you part of the TC crew at all times, or was it touch and go? Like, okay, this is Will and Andy's show, and I'll come in as much or as little as I
As much
want.
as possible, as much as Line would give us budget to work together, yes. And um we would meet up whenever, wherever we could, and get as many skiers who we enjoy, like LJ, Ian Compton, fucking. And it's like it's cool because it keeps growing. It's not the same crew all the time, but like at this point, we were battling with Chug Life. Do you remember Chug Life?
Yep,
Ian,
Ian Costco.
yeah. And it was like his shit was funny as fuck, dude. And like it was on news scores, you'd watch and be like, "God, he's crushing it. We're losing," but it's also like, well, we're just gonna keep doing it, and we keep doing it. 10 plus. How many years have we been doing it? 15 years later.
You guys, TC might be on like 15 years now, for all I know.
Thank God. I mean, after this year, it's kind of hard to do a line traveling circus. We could do a line quarantine circus, but like no one wants to watch that.
Yeah, I feel like we did skip over when Line came into the fold for you.
So, um, as I said earlier, I was sponsored by Atomic at 14, right?
Mm.
And I was just like, I moved to Mammoth at 18 and was still sponsored by Atomic, but like they're just like, we like would appreciate if you stop emailing us. And I was like, are you like, what do I do? Like, I'm trying. What do you? Okay, fuck you, Atomic. And I started working at P3 and Kitcher Sports, which is like where Pep Fuas worked, and I just was in now rental versus a ski tech, as ski tech is way much cooler title than rental. And I meet Larry Atola, and Larry Atola is like, "Do you want? Can you show me around the mountain?" And first thing I do is like get on the mountain with him, smoke some weed, and just like have the funnest time. And he's like, "You're fucking on. You're on with Line. Like I would like you to be." At that point, it wasn't like ambassadors or mountain defenders or whatever the fuck they call it. It was just like Lowry just flowed me full tilt Line, and it definitely was appropriate for like myself skiing because Atomic and Solomon, like they're all corporate with like their famous athletes, but Line was like fucking Eric Pollard, Shane Skaz, fucking people actually looked up to in skiing and like artists, creative style. And they then I got to meet Jason and
What,
Max Hill and fucking oh so many good times.
what were you thinking of Jason when you first met him? I mean, because that when you were describing your line acquiring you, I just imagined like Jason, this he's sitting back in Vermont, he gets the call like, "Oh yeah, we found this kid that loves to smoke weed out in Mammoth. He's on your team now." And Jason's just
No,
what
no
the
one
fuck?
like he at this point like no one talks about smoking weed and whatnot. Like um he does love his brownies, but one of the first times I meet Jason, we go to a line photo shoot here in Squaw, and my friend's growing like tons of fucking weed. I'm not gonna say who, but like Max and I come back, and I feel like I'm in high school. I'm so high, and we just demoed and tried all these skis. And Jason's like, "What do you think about this ski?" And I was like, "What?" Like, I think he was totally just calling me out to make fun. But like, Joss is there. He's like 8 years old, prodigy child. I don't think Joss remembers this fucking thing, but it was like one of my first photo shoots in real time. And like I'm just hanging out with my friends. Next thing I know, like we're late for this meeting. And Jay just totally sees us and was just like, Garrett, what did you think about these skis and how do they ski and what type of camber do they have? And I was just like, they skied. They moved down the hill.
Jesus. I mean, it really does show the how intertwined all of skiing is because everything and everybody relates to somebody else, you know? Like all these different timelines are intersecting at different
That's
points.
cool. You can see it because it totally does. It really has all these different connecting points of inspiration and or just connection. Um, it's a small community, small world of skiing, but it's like you're actually in the heights of it because you're actually getting to play with different and get different stories. Hopefully, people are honest with you, so you can actually get deeper into like the history of skiing.
Yeah. I mean, they're always honest. It's whether or not they want to be honest while we're recording.
Ah,
Yeah. We find out the truth one way or another. Um,
totally. In this day and age, like I can hide it all, or not. You're gonna find it.
yeah. So I want to go back to when you and Andy and Will are acquiring some of the new members of TC, the LJs of the world, the Ians of the world. How did you link up with those kids, and what were you thinking about? You know,
Honestly, that was all
let's see.
Will and Andy, and they weren't thinking about linking up. They just see talent and they wanted to interact with people who would never get noticed, right? And that's the best thing about TC is that this is kind of one of my philosophies is like if you gave everyone like a skateboard, right? Skis, pass, like there's so much more talent out there, but skiing so fucking inclusive and special and just like um you have to be a rich fucking white person to go skiing. And so that's one thing I hate about skiing the entire time. But like if you gave everyone on this planet skis and the ability to do what we do all the time, none of us would actually even exist. There'd be so many more better people than we are. And that's like skateboarding to a fact. Is like those all you need is wheels, a skateboard, and concrete and creativity and the mindset and drive. And so like Will and Andy saw that. And so whoever they come across and they're friends, like I mean LJ and Ahmet and um Ian, they just like they're friends skiing. And so why not share the love and film them and get them famous? Except for Ian's all about conspiracies, and I miss that kid.
What do you mean by Ian's all about conspiracies?
Oh,
Are we
dude.
talking?
People retired like you don't retire from skiing unless you're Evan Raps or fucking and you're never gonna ski again. But like Ian's like a great skier and he's just like we'd be hanging out and people are like, are you um Rolling Stones son? Who is that?
Mick Jagger?
Just like I'm fucking over this shit. He's a goddamn good skier and he can't retire from skiing. Same with Max Hill. I saw him skiing and filming some shit. Like it's Max Hill. But that's like the genius behind Jason Leventhal is like he didn't want to just give money to one entity of a skier and be like, you're gonna be rich and famous. I want to spread this out as far as I can to get as many kids free skis and just make skiing fun again. So
Mm,
like cheers to Jason for doing that because he has done that.
yeah. Do you feel like Traveling Circus gets the respect it deserves
It never
terms
will.
of
But it's
skill
also like
and influence?
um I'll just mention Vincent Van Gogh. Do you think he's getting the fucking props he deserves? No, he's dead. It's art. We're creating art and we're just having a good time. And maybe in 100 years it won't be snow and it'd be like a joke to watch skiing. Like what is that shit? It's just creativity and expression itself. And Will is goddamn good at 50/50s.
I mean,
And
Will's got an X Games gold medal through real ski now. So I mean, he has been recognized by the
he has.
industry for his skill.
Have you interviewed Will yet?
I have not. No, I think I'd like to hone my skills before trying to crack that nut. You don't want to. I don't know if you want to rush into an interview with someone that's notoriously quiet.
No, he's difficult to talk to in person, unless you know him well. But like Will is a goal setter. I'm just gonna say this on record. When he won X Games, like we were in Japan and filming for level one, which he got me on, which is super nice. He's like, Garrett, just do your shit. We'll get you in the movie. I'm like, always bummed I never was in a movie before, but like I used to ski without poles, and so like skiing without poles was made fun of until fucking everyone else was skiing without poles, and I was like, cool, I'll just fucking miss that bus, and you can all fuck yourself. But I mean, seriously, Evan, not Evan Williams was the first person I saw skiing without poles and was doing grabs, and that's when I was inspired to do no poles. I would make fun of like I don't want to look like a rollerblader, but I also like to grab blunt and just or just like have that vulnerability. Plus, I stabbed myself in the leg with a ski pole as a kid. I Poles were scary. He got me into level one that year because I was guiding there, but also got to ski with like Sammy and Rob, who similar lib, and it was like one of the funnest Japanese or film segments because I was worried about I was going to be guiding them the entire time, but I didn't have to guide them one bit because as once you're a guide, you're always a guide. But if you have a relationship and rapport with your crew, you don't have to guide them. Like you know their capabilities and what they're capable of. So we got shots. Next thing you know, I'm like in level one. I'm like, yeah, I made it. And after that year, I think I lost all my sponsors except for Line, Full Tilt. So it goes.
You made it, and then that was it. Yeah,
And I was like, cool. Who is that? I mean, like that shows how much like movies don't mean to sponsors, and it's all about competition in a way, and the media, mass media focus,
mm,
as far as I know.
yeah. You said
I
that
just
TC doesn't get the respect it deserves. What was the reaction from amongst the athletes? Like, what were the fellow professional skiers thinking of what you guys were doing with TC? Were they like, dude, those tricks are
I'll give you a great example. Tanner Hall would be like, "That's fucking whack as fuck, as fuck. Don't ski slide." And next thing you know, he's ski sliding shit and giving Phil Casabon and like, like they just on hindsight, like people respected it because we're just doing our own thing. But like, if you have someone that's that important in skiing to tell you what's cool and what's not, that's great because that's what keeps skiing in that aspect. But like creative skiing is like it's whatever you want. And now lately I see so much more creative skiing, like Butters and no one's talking shit. At that time it definitely was like Ian Compton and Andy Parry. Like I still can't do shit that Andy Parry does. I won't even try wizard slide. I've tried and I broke my kneecap and I no, I'm not doing that again.
yeah. Uh, wow, it really what you're saying is really repositioning how I think of traveling circus in my mind. Because for me, I've always been stoked on it, but for the people, especially in the industry, that's like skiing's got to be serious.
Oh,
They're
it always
probably
has
like,
been. It's money. It's fucking we want. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So they
We
probably
want
hate
what
they
Traveling
probably
Circus
hated
doesn't do.
traveling circus. They're like, you guys are a bunch of weird nerds. Like, get traveling circus out of here.
Dude, get Andy Perry paid. That motherfucker's the most creative and Will's traveled enough of the world. We don't need to pay him more. But like Andy Perry, then Ian Compton and LJ is sitting on a computer. He wants to retire from skiing. He doesn't even want to fucking ski anymore. That's sad. He's one of the best skiers I fucking know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. Yeah.
Who's the out of the TC bunch? Who's the one that's like blowing your mind a lot? Because for me, watching it, it was always Ross was always doing stuff that I was like, what the hell? Like this is like
So
borderline stuntman shit.
as a guide, you can't ever turn the guide off. Ross stresses the fuck out of me. But he's just like he's had 7+ knee surgeries, but he handles his pain and deals with it. So like I can assess and put him back together and get him to the hospital. But in in reality, Andy, dude, he's not even flexible. He can't even like bend over and touch his toes, but he can do these crazy things on rails, and you're just like, and Will is, Ian, LJ, Gry, Andy's one of my most impressive. Like the shit he does is so far beyond. I just hope he gets respect for it at some point because it's fucking rad. And his like insight, like I listened. Your first podcast was you interviewing him about a tell a friend tour, and just like he laid shit down about how the ski industry is and how stuff is, and like I really enjoyed that because he's an intelligent person and he says it how it is.
Hmm.
And I think more people should listen to him.
Well, I'm glad you liked that episode. I think that Andy's got a lot to say, and
Oh,
I
he's
think,
one of my like him and Liam Downey are some of my favorite people to listen to. I could listen to him for hours.
yeah, the good thing about Andy having a lot to say is that he's not afraid to say it, which is great. You don't want someone with a ton of thoughts that's afraid to speak. He'll say it to whoever's listening, basically.
And thinks about it before he says it is well processed.
Mhm.
I totally agree.
Uh, so I think some of the TC secrets are well guarded, especially the behind the scenes happenings in the van. What's it like actually being on the road with those fellas? Is it contentious at times? Is there is it like unlimited women and drugs? Like what's actually
No,
going
no,
on behind the
we
scenes?
keep it PG as fuck. It just totally turns into this um family bickering. They can bicker. Like while we're doing those shows and whatnot, like we might do our own things on the outside, but like no one talks about it. Um, which we actually like we have to work together. So we're not fucking around like doing drugs and like doing shit. Like smoking weed in Japan is totally legal, so we don't do it. Why would you risk the entire crew of that? Um, but we'll get drunk and like, every now and then we'll get like will drunk and it's like super fun, but like it's super rare. But our whole entire goal is to ski and get shit done and like go to places that no one else has been and stow kids out. So like um I think the only thing you don't see behind the scenes is how much Will and Andy bicker. Like how many times I want to like leave the van and just rent a car and just go away, but it's not that bad because you just deal with it.
Yeah. Are you ever seeing fist fights on the road, or is it just
Oh, they luckily are all adults and like arguments happen, but like it's like they're adults and they just handle it. And next day, you just take your emotions and put them away and go skiing.
it's funny. That's honestly what I imagined. I imagined it just being pretty tame, and you guys are like, "Yep, all right, got to get to this next place."
Andy, fucking put your boots away. It smell like shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Andy, those smell awful. I'm gonna throw up. And you get three other people saying that, and you're like, he will listen. And then they're in the back. And it's not like, in all reality, there's not been any um violence or whatnot, but like that first year, the second year, when we all were like Max Hill, myself, Cole, Drexler, Shane, and all of us, like we hit a breakthrough and we thought like we're never gonna ski again together. Traveling Circus over. This is year two, going from Big Bear to Mammoth. And it was just like a meltdown. And we were like all young teenagers. We got through it. But like it was just high school emotions.
Yeah. Who's
Dumb.
who's the anchor of the group? Who's keeping you guys on track and making sure Like more or less, who's the dad of the group that's like, all right, we got to be at the airport at this time. Like enough messing around. Wrap it up. We got to go.
Depends on who's filming. Um, the dad on the group and who's keeping people in track all depends on the group dynamics. It could either be Andy, it could be Will, it could be the filmer. It usually is Will, but then we have to sometimes override Will to say like, dude, we're group consensus, we're not doing that. It's gonna snow there, we're going there, we're gonna do that. And Will listen, but he has his own mind, but he's also really bad at making decisions.
Will's
Yeah,
got a Will's
but
got
like
an
he has
interesting.
his he doesn't want to be in charge of making decisions, so it's like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can help make those decisions for him sometimes.
That dude, you guys are living a weird life in that van. I think I've heard this in a different interview, maybe with it was with one of the various members of the group. Um, but you guys aren't sleeping in that van like most of the time, right? It's usually just like cheap motels. The
But we will
whole
go, yeah, cheap motels and whatnot. The only couple of times I've actually slept in that van was with Ian Compton on one of those episodes, and it was like that. Andy blew his knee out, so they needed something. So it was Compton and I, and we went and we camped behind a Save Mart in Truckee, which later out I found out it's like one of the sketchiest places to like sleep. That's like the boreal days. And there was no, we we all need our personal space, right? So Will does a good job of like we can afford this hotel and whatnot. But I mean, if you're in a foreign country, sometimes you can't do that. So you're just like you're stuck together, but as well, like your travel logistics don't follow through. So guess what? We're all sleeping in the car together, but like, guess what? We're going skiing at a fucking cool spot. That's all that matters. Just sleep and go with the flow.
I got to ask the one that most people wonder. Has anyone ever gotten laid in the van?
I would say I have not gone late in the van. I'd say the only person that could have gone late in the van is someone you least suspect.
I don't want to say a name because I don't want to say
Yeah,
who
neither do
who
I.
that least
So,
expect.
yeah, so I'll just leave that at that question. I have no idea.
All right,
I,
word.
I don't have the van enough to get laid in.
All right. I feel sorry for whatever girl got taken back to the van.
When we
uh,
did I would just tell you, when we were doing the pilot for Fuel TV, Andy went and saw a psychic, and she was just like, "You guys, just please don't start doing steroids and drugs." And I was just like, "Who's gonna start doing steroids? Like, like who?" Great psychic. And Andy has this blind date, which was one of the things that we could do for a just to get viewers to follow. So like Andy, he was willing to do it, go on a blind date. Never happened, but like it was definitely he got catfish, and it was just like I don't think anyone's ever actually gotten laid in the van.
oh, so now you're taking it back. You don't think anyone's ever gotten laid in the van?
Well, in the 10 years, I spent only so much time in the van, but who knows what Will does on his own time.
Who out of the crew, who hangs the worst? Like who can't deal with the road life and just falls apart by the end, basically.
Okay. Eric Olson can hang the most, but no one knows Eric Olson, but like he doesn't deal with bullshit. And so like he gets fed up with Andy and Will's bullshit because he knows them, he's known them since the get-go. Um, Other than that, like LJ does not tolerate their bickering. LJ would be like, I'm quitting skiing, I'm fucking engineer. And sure enough, he'll come back. But I, Eric or LJ.
How about Ian? Because there's the
Well,
well-known
Ian's not.
story of
Ian's done.
yeah.
Ian can't handle that shit. He doesn't handle stress well, and like, yeah. Um,
He's just a simple man, just a simple Vermont man. I mean, you
He's
can't
one of the
blame him.
most simple, beautiful human beings I've ever met. He doesn't like stress, and like Andy's and Will's bickering reminds you of like your parents after 40 years. Who wants to deal with that shit?
Yeah. Ian's just like, I'm moving out. Like, I'm getting my
Yeah.
own place.
So on those three, I mean, Ian's not involved anymore. I would say LJ.
Mm. What do you think of the current state of skiing? Is it more of the same, or are you seeing some new stuff? And I'm
Well,
specifically in regards to like those dynamics. Like, damn, like this is such a. We kind of hinted at it earlier of like that, like corporate versus underground.
the new state of skiing is going to be whatever it is with the Olympics. Um, God, the tricks are insane. Could not even imagine having to spin both ways 900. I could barely do that one direction. Um, but then when that happens, there's still creativity that skiing, as long as we can have snow, there will be art and people having fun
Mm.
and doing it differently than like, all right, it's like racing and half pipe. Like I had one Japanese friend, Switch Ken 10, who his coach would only let him ski half pipe for 4 years till the Olympics. And when we skied the last time in Japan, he was like, I haven't hit a rail in 4 years. I was like, what? That doesn't make you a good skier. Like, you got to ski. No wonder you didn't win the Olympics. And he was just like, oh. I was like, seriously, like most of my friends who don't even have half pipes win the Olympics. It's perspective. But the future of skiing, as long as we have snow, that's all I care about.
Mm.
Um, Could you imagine big mountain skiing being in the Olympics? No. I mean, like it's interesting to have slopestyle and half pipe, which are quite systematic, but like as I was saying earlier, if you're not doing all the same routine, how do you judge style? Like that is or a grab. Like there's so many variations on rotations and technical fucking grabs that only some people do, but like it's all biased opinions. I say fuck it.
What do you think that TC at the time was like, all right, screw all these hardos. I'm gonna do some creative tricks. Do you think that Traveling Circus is gonna be able to live on, or is it kind of a relic of the past and people are now reinterpreting skiing because it's been going on for 15 years? Like, is it still underground and counterculture, or is that now part of the mainstream and people are like, all right, we got to reimagine?
Good question. I mean, it's like um Black Eyed Peas were underground, but then they're like playing Dr. Pepper commercials. It all depends on where skiing goes in the future. Uh, I think it's a fad and it'll die, and there's nothing we can do like special about it. It's just skiing and traveling circus cannot last forever. For God's sake, we have our own lives to live. Unless Will wants to keep it going, I'll still go there. But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's everything has a blossoming and a dying time. When
Profound.
it is, I don't know.
Hmm. Who is there anyone in the group that's like only a couple more years and this thing's wrapped up? Is there anybody calling for the end of it, or is there a general optimism?
Not at all. I think everyone's just like, we like to ski, and as long as so, one of my favorite things is like, you don't get many old people who can ski, right? You got skateboarders who can ski or skateboard and give the youth inspiration. As far as I know, Will, Andy, and myself, and everyone who's still skiing wants to give inspiration to be like, hey, you're 40 years old, you can still ski and have a career or not, but like it's it's not that short window. I don't want it to be that short window. I want to give an idea that like you can still progress in old age, but also like it all depends on the social dynamic of what skiing thinks is cool or not
Mm.
at that point. but I think Will is going to carry that on as long as he can. Why not? I mean, he's a skier,
Yeah.
one of the best skiers I know. And the more he skis powder and like gets in the backcountry and snow surfs, is just like that's inspirational to me. And I want the youth to know that like you can ski until your death.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think most professional wealthy attributions think about that, but it's like keep people skiing, keep people having fun.
Yeah. What do you think of what do you think of this new school style? The new wave, like the bunches style specifically. What do you think of all that? Cuz you guys were the weirdos of your day.
You can ask the bunch and ask them where they get inspired or where they got inspired from.
Mhm. How certain are you that it's from you guys?
100%.
100% certain?
Yeah.
Like told to you or you just feel it in your bones?
I've heard it from different spectrums, but I mean, if you watch our old shit I've been doing for like 15 years, and Will Wesson's been saying it. It's like I've been doing that for fucking 20 years.
Yeah. So that's actually interesting. When Traveling Circus first came out, I wasn't at the age to appreciate it. Like I don't even think I tuned in until like season 5 or season 6, but I did see when the bunch came on the scene and I saw the reaction to that style where everyone's like, what the hell are these, you know, um
Kids doing with their mittens and whatnot.
yeah,
Like
it's like what is their
fuck up
style?
on
Like this is everyone's like half of the people are like this is the shit. Half to be like this is
what
whack. Was that the
what
same
is whack.
thing?
Yeah,
Was that the same thing that happened with TC when it first came out?
100%. Yeah,
Okay,
but
yeah.
it felt a little bit more Americanized with like that's what Jason loved about line skis is being weird. And we're
Mhm.
fucking I mean, wizard wax like, and he's still does tricks I cannot ever try or will try, but like will break myself off. Um, I think like the bunch, ski fi. I mean, it's all ski creative. Like gotten it's cool to see the progression and what people are doing with butters and not doing triple. I mean, because aerials are sweet, right? I used to train for aerials when I was doing moguls. I did ballet, moguls, and aerials. And Nikki Stone was my coach, and I went to um, Park City and learned how to do flips. And the first flip I did a front flip, rotated and backslapped on the fucking water. And I was like, I'm never jumping off these water ramps again. I want to learn my tricks and powder. Fuck you all. I'm not doing aerials. And now you got these kids with airbags. Even though they talk shit on airbags, they're hitting airbags. Like the creativity part is like that is what I find the most beautiful thing I've seen lately in skiing is the small shit. Tech Mob, Stu Halverson, Wicked. If you ever seen Wicked, you see fucking Neil Soterakopoulos and fucking Sean Logan, Sean Decker, my favorite folk.
Talk
You
I
know
mean
what I'm
talk
talking about.
about talk about a realignment of perception, like the parallels between the bunch and the traveling circus are actually like that actually like runs deeper than you would think on the surface, like kind of counterculture style, at first everyone's calling you weirdos,
Yeah.
backing from a specific company. You guys had Line, they have ON3P, all American brands, and it's like it's really just like it's everything's cyclical, you know something new becomes the norm, then there's a new counter, then there's a new revolt against it, that becomes the norm, new revolt. It's like it's just
Hard
endless.
to explain, but it's kind of beautiful in that essence of transition, eh?
Mm.
Like people will transition to what they find the norm and cool. And well, it all comes down to perspective again and how people perceive what is cool and what is not. And if it's trending, then it's super cool. If it's not, it's not. But like 10 years later, it could be the coolest thing ever. And you're just like, cool. I was 10 years ahead of my time, but that's art. You'd be 100 years ahead of your time. That's Vincent Van Gogh and fucking people who will never see the benefits of their art, but like now there's museums of greatness.
What do you think of needing to strike the balance between? Because I mean, you can be the most artistic person in the world. If you're too artistic, you got to have a job doing dishes or doing construction. Like, what's the balance? Obviously, particularly in skiing, between making money and sticking true to however you want to pursue skiing. Like, what's that line that you got to toe? Because you got to be able to sustain the lifestyle somehow.
I chose guiding and educating people to be safe in the backcountry because I know every person who skis is going to watch ski videos and get in the backcountry. So best thing I can do is educate with simple area one or just route finding, and being safe in the backcountry and medically safe. But um, that's my comfort level to like how I can contribute to what's going on skiing because I see it. Who doesn't want to ski powder?
Yeah, and I think that could be a good time to drop in back to the timeline. I know that we've deviated, but you go from Argentina, you tear it up with Traveling Circus, all over the country, all over the world. But then it seems like you're spending a lot of time in Japan doing guiding
Yeah.
work. What's up with Japan in your life?
So I'll tell you from the long story. Here we go. Um, shit, I'm gonna grab another beer for this one.
We'll
I'll be right
strap
back.
in.
All right, I'm back.
All right.
Thanks for your patience. So, how I got involved in Japan was I was 18 and I go to New Zealand. I spent all my high school graduation money to go to New Zealand because Southern Hemisphere, all I wanted to do is ski. I lived in New Zealand for 2 weeks at 16. And so I have these friends in Queenstown. And at 18, I go back to New Zealand. I get a pass to Snow Park, which doesn't exist anymore. Remarkables in Kadrona. And during this time, I meet these 6 Japanese dudes. I can remember Yuki Kuroda, uh, Norris, Tatsuya, Utah. And so randomly, I keep running into these Japanese dudes in Whistler and Mammoth. And at one time, I have this Japanese girlfriend who they all come to Mammoth because they know Mammoth is like the Mecca of big jumps and skiing. And this is like the small Japanese crew. And so at 20, when I start bartending, I get enough money. I go to Japan and I get to Japan. I'm like, what the fuck have I just done? I have no idea. I can't read anything. And I'm just like bright eyed, bushy tailed, lost. But spend 2 weeks living with Yuki Kadota in his house that's smaller than this room with like his girlfriend and 5 other Japanese people. And for like 2 weeks, I didn't say more than 10 or 20 English words, except for like toilet, shit like that. And after that moment, I was there in the spring and was riding park. This was 25 years, 7 years later. Um, I get to go back again on my own for a week and just spend money and go to Japan because I loved it so much. And then years after that, I bring Mike Rogi from, um, Mike Rogi.
I don't believe
He
so.
he was editor for Powder magazine, and this was before he worked for Ski the East. And I had this client who just was like, "Here's free tickets to Japan for 2 people," and we went, and I got to like coach, but it was like for me, I'm used to sleeping in cars and like shit going awry. Mike Rogi held super tough, and that was my third time. The fourth time was with SASS, and we started There might be one in between there. I can't remember. But with all that time in Japan, I have all these connections. Guiding became quite easy, and I work for a travel agency, so Japan is very grateful for like us bringing clientele or people to spend money in Japan, and that's how I got into Japan. And Hokkaido has always been a dream of mine. Usually, I'd go to the main island, which doesn't have that good of snow, but like my old girlfriend Mary Mizukami, she uh she helped out, and like it's an
So,
adventure.
so what was your work there? You were just doing the same. You took the Argentina guiding program and just brought it out to Japan.
Um, Actually, that is what reminds me. After years in Argentina, we have enough clientele that we have like our VIP clientele that we will do a soft opening or just an exploration operation and bring clients that we can trust and just be like, hey, we're gonna win this. Um, when they first did that, I was actually the first time filming with Traveling Circus with Cole, Andy was I don't know if Will was on that trip. I think it was, but it was like definitely Shane McFalls was filming it, and it was like uh definitely Shane filmed it, and it was like ramen 1 and 2. Everyone loves ramen, and so they were doing their SASS was doing their preemptive trip, seeing what clients could do and where they could go, and they traveled all over Japan. And the next year, it's been like 5 years of guiding up there and having and running into my old friends who I'm super grateful for because Japanese culture, you don't want to be a gaijin that just says I'm here, I'm going to take over. Like no, you have to respect their culture, and like having my friends to like ease us into that means a lot to them and also to me.
Hmm. What's the uh, what's the ski culture like in Japan? Japan. It's kind of Japanese culture is kind of inaccessible to
Mysterious.
Americans.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's mysterious. That's a very good word for it. So what's the ski culture like? Are they big on?
Used to be huge. And it's amazing how snowboarding has blown up, but like skiing is kind of like this dying culture. So there's 500 plus ski areas in Japan. But after the Olympics in Nagano and whatnot, technology took over. And so skiing hit a huge crash. So there's a lot of abandoned ski areas, but people are no longer interested in skiing or being creative. Like snowboarding is so cool. They really fashion towards the coolest aspect of a sport dynamic. And snowboarding is as cool as it gets. So guess what? They come up with the sickest fucking snowboarders in the world. And I just hope skiing can make a comeback because Yuki Kodota, like he was the first person to do double cork 720, just wobbled it 360, and no one even knew what that was, but like no one knows who Yuki Kodota is. It's fucking. And then you got like Shoyo who filmed with Tanner and CR and whatnot, but like there's so much more talent out there, but it's snowboarding is taking over, which I totally understand. It's way more stylish. But just the ski culture in Japan is hard to explain, my dear friends.
That, oh my God, talk about opening a new can of mental worms, just trying to even understand what's going on over there. Do they have like a competitive scene out there?
Not so much. They
Okay.
don't even have half pipes. So the only places that those half pipe riders go to is in competitions.
Oh,
Like
that's weird. So how do they even train?
by being fucking ninjas. I don't know. um, Great question. And they don't. I mean, they just fucking do it. But like there's actually no super pipe I know of in Japan at all.
Hmm.
No, I the only half pipes I've ridden are 12 feet tall.
Yeah. Do you still go and guide out there? Like what's your
This
current country of choice?
Japan is my I've never been to Europe. Broke my collarbone before I could go with Traveling Circus. I was supposed to go, and then LJ took my spot, but I broke my collarbone, so I couldn't go. But Japan is my go-to.
Were you huge on sushi prior to going to Japan, or did you have was it a sink or swim type of deal?
There's a lot of other food besides sushi.
Oh, I love Japanese cuisine. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So Hokkaido is one of the later imperialized, not imperialized. They were not conquered by the Japanese until later on, like 120 plus years ago. And their cuisine, Hokkaido, there's a lot of things in Hokkaido. They say only Hokkaido. So Sapporo Classic, only Hokkaido. There's a lot of things you cannot get anywhere else except for Hokkaido because they manifest Hokkaido. And so like soup curry, good soup curry is my favorite dish. Didn't even know I like curry that much, but soup curry is in Hokkaido and many places is all time
Yeah.
delicious and spicy as fuck if you want it.
I'm looking at pictures of Hokkaido right now, and this is beautiful. And Japan is one of those places that it's like I've never been, and I've been to Asia before, but I've never been to Japan. And Japan just seems like it's just so mysterious and unique. Like, what about other than like the surface level things that any Joe Schmo could talk about? What calls you about Japan, and what do you like about the country? Because I feel like there's something spiritual going on with Japan.
There's there's a lot for me on that. And first it was anime.
Okay.
I don't know why, but like Princess Mononoke was premiered in Telluride. I was like in high school, and it just was one of the first movies of so and so. It was just fucking raw and amazing, but a kids movie, but just so beautifully made. But then 25 years later, I highly recommend you recommend read the book
Shugen.
Shogun, and it actually talks about like how their culture is who they are. I mean, they used to kill everyone every day, beheadings, and like they're violent, brutal people. And the thing for me to be humbled by is that I'm from America, and we bombed them, and they allow us to go there. But after Hiroshima and whatnot, like we taught them something that they didn't ever have, that freedom, that they're not the biggest country in the world. Um, where like New Zealand's, I would always get made fun of, and Argentina, I could go there, but the CIA used to just make 5,000, 50,000 plus people disappear, but they would still respect me. And I'm like, I'm from America. Like, for people to not judge me from where I'm from means a lot,
Hmm.
especially Japanese and South Americans.
Hmm. Well, you know about the questionable history of Argentina throughout the 20th century, right? Taking in some former Nazis, a little
Oh, yeah, no, they're
hush
definitely
hush.
down there. Yeah, no, like I know a lot of German folk down there.
Yeah,
Do
I was
you-
that's what I was gonna ask. Is there an influence of that emigration from the end of World War II that everybody basically just ran away to Argentina? Like, is there influences of that down there?
There is, but like they keep it hush hush, so you would never know unless you were openly Jewish, which is something you should be able to do. Um, but I think them fleeing to Argentina would make them not ever fucking lash out. Plus, Argentina is full of so much Latin America that like you can blend in. Um, I haven't seen anything personally abrupt in that
Okay.
essence. Let me say, but
All
it's
right.
there. It's definitely there's a presence of German influence and Italian.
Yep. And if you don't know the history, you're like, hmm, how did that get down here?
Right? But it's beautiful in its own way.
Yeah. I mean, the world is far more complex and strange than a postcard could sum up, you know?
Yeah, indeed. And like the Spanish fucked up more. The conquistadors were worse than the Germans.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, and you gave a nod to how gnarly the Japanese used to be. I mean, holy crap, they were.
and that's where like that's within their own country in Korea and whatnot. But yeah, they were fucking brutal as fuck.
Hmm.
Um, but then the Catholics and the Christians, I'm sorry, were I can go on to that.
Yeah.
Way more brutal. And then skiing is just a gift. And that's one thing that I think I want to remind everyone is that skiing is just like we're so fortunate and blessed to be able to ride chairlifts and go slide down the mountain. And that's like if it's a bad, crusty day, that's the stress of our life. We're spoiled as fuck
Yeah.
and blessed, but really, like we're so lucky.
So lucky. What have you thought about that throughout your career? Because you've been doing this for, like you said, like 20 years now. And are you looking around at your friends, friends, relatives, yada yada yada, that have, they're riding the straight and narrow, and they come home, they're like, damn, my job sucks. And like, what are you thinking throughout your 20 years watching people grow up, taking the traditional routes while you're on this non-traditional path?
The grass is always greener on the other side.
Hmm.
I get very jealous of my friends who have kids and a house and a wife, pick a fence. Um, and they think the same about me, like, oh, you get to travel and ski and have fun all the time. I think the one thing that needs to be addressed though sometimes is how many fathers I've lost, like parents of kids skiing who are dead, and now you leave a wife and a kid alone. That's it's like a war zone out there, but like no one is actually mentally there to like talk about it and help each other out. And it's gonna get worse as more of my friends are having kids. Because guess what? We all ski, and we're not gonna stop skiing. And that's not the greener side of the story. But yes, I get jealous of my friends who just like live a fucking scheduled 9 to 5 weekend warrior lifestyle and have that. But like I'm anti-conformist in that way, so I'm not doing that. Sorry to take it deep that way, but yeah.
Don't worry about it. It is we're on the late night show right now. At least in my neck of the woods. We started this interview late for a little bit of
But I'm so glad we got this done tonight because otherwise we just dilly dally and put it off. But today was a good day for me to actually talk. And
yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, you mentioned that skiing's dangerous. And so, what do you think of this rise in people going into the backcountry that we saw over
about
2020
COVID,
with COVID? It's like, it's crazy. Every single person in skiing's like, oh, yeah, like, let's go touring. Let's just like go walk up the mountain and like, screw it. Let's go do it. What do you think of all that?
I'll tell you what's more dangerous is I bought a 2020 Skidoo and you got me fucking out there fucking on a fucking 850cc getting after it. I think actually people have when COVID hit, there's a lot of people that are just going gung ho and just going out there to get away from the crowds. I think a lot more people in this last year have gotten educated. And in reality, a lot more people my age who are more experienced are dying because they're not taking the training and practicing beacon drills and route assessment or snowpack. Um, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason, or no one's in the wrong, or no one knows what to do. It's a lot of humans in nature. Fuck, dude. I
Yeah.
like I can make a mistake anytime, any day, and like it'd be super embarrassing, but that's I'm human, and I would hope it doesn't happen, but like we're playing with fucking nature, dude.
Hmm. Do you think that for the average skill skier that the juice is worth the squeeze in the backcountry, or do you think that most people are better off staying inbound, staying safe, and not risking their lives?
I've seen so many post control slides, meaning that ski patrol cut the mountain and open it to the public and the shit rips and people get buried. I think people are consciously aware of that and scared enough to not go in the backcountry as much so as they might have used to in like movies and like see it. I think it's 50-50.
Mhm. It's tough to say. I mean, there's no immediate obvious answer. Like, there's definitely a lot of benefits to
There could
going
be
to the backcountry.
statistics, but I think over this year, a lot more people. I mean, Utah had a really horrible month where a lot of like professional, great, knowledgeable people died. But in hindsight, to how many people are out in the backcountry, I don't know the numbers of it, but I think people are starting to take it more seriously, which is fucking awesome. Keep it up. Study that shit. And like the best quote I know, if it's dangerous outside, you know the safest place is
Inside.
the bar. But
Oh God.
with me where I can make money off you.
Yeah. So what do you have on your plate right now? For some behind the scenes, Garrett was on a river today, so we pushed this back a couple hours because who doesn't love being on a river? And I don't mind waiting if somebody's doing something.
Um, I just got back into kayaking a little bit, but uh am living here in North Lake Tahoe. This is the first room I've actually had in 2 years. I've been living on my camper, which was awesome until COVID because now everyone wants a camper and hashtag van life has ruined all my great spots. So if I'm going into the woods, I want to be away from people, not surrounded by fucking people with $80,000 vans being like, "Hi, I'm John. I just moved here from the Bay and I work remotely." And you're like, I don't want to talk to you. So my roommates are awesome. I got a really good deal. They they're fucking awesome. And I
Yeah.
have a room. I can ride my bike to work. Um, behind the scenes
I
of
mean,
that.
who would have thought that the counterculture thing to do would be to shockingly to rent a room in a house? Damn, that's pretty punk of you.
Well, it it is punk, but it also is right in this era where what is era right terminology?
This
You
time.
can't find good roommates. And this house could be sold underneath us within a couple months and then we're all homeless. But I still got my camper van outside. Not camper van, the G spot, as my friends like to call it, because it's hard to find.
What do you think? What do you think of van life? I mean, this is another trend that TC was ahead of, that you're ahead of. Like, you guys were ripping van life before van life was the hot thing to post on Instagram.
I think it was awesome. It still is, but I think the jaded local from Mammoth and Mike Rogi's Mountain Gazette. He's just like all these fucking rich people with $80,000 vans are moving in with their vans. Like it definitely has killed it in a minute. Um,
Temporary or permanently?
they won't last. Let's
No
just
way.
say they won't last. Let's just pray they won't last. I think you can still find Andy and Will in a van somewhere deep in the woods. And if you do, Andy likes jalapeno bagels and Will likes like vitamin water. You give that to them and like then you can access the realm of traveling circus.
Word. I mean, what? this is this episode. I'm gonna have to edit so much of this,
But
but
I'm sorry, like I rambled, not rambled, but like I don't know you, but I just want to talk.
of course,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Um, the van. Rest in peace, the old traveling circus van.
Fuck that van. Fuck line for not giving us four-wheel drive to van. Sorry, but like I can't tell you how many times we've gone stuck with chains and like we're a ski crew. we're lucky to enough to have a van, but like, I mean, a Sprinter van with 4-wheel drive or anything with 4-wheel drive would be nice. It's $80,000 more, but like, there's been multiple times in that van, I'm like, cool, this is how we all die. Andy, Ian, love you. Peace out. But we don't. Like, Will's a good driver. Andy, just don't let Will drive while eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do it.
So the van or there. I mean, you guys have called it many things. Van Bear Pig. That thing sucked.
Free candy
Yeah.
was never named, but it's, I mean, the thing is iconic, but also Andy and Will are very creative as hell. It's like how they could manifest room for sleeping, room for skis, room for chipping through. Like, pretty rad.
Mm. I mean, they're definitely onto something because now they somehow managed to round up the money for a second rendition of the van.
Which was a huge, I I thought it was pretty funny, but like, yes, if anyone knows, Line has given us tons of money, but we're not enough money source to have them buy us our own van. But that's the beauty of Line. Like, we have to keep ourselves on our toes, and for like Will and Andy to do that, go fund us or whatever,
Mm.
and the reactions from that were pretty hilarious and profound. Even my friend Bernie was like, "How the fuck?" Is like, dude, you don't. It's Line. No one has money. Jason Leventhal has no money. He doesn't even work there anymore.
Yeah. He's not even involved at all.
Josh Malchak has no money. Eric Pullard doesn't have any money. But it's like the dream to keep it going. I mean, yeah, we need viewer support, and we got it. Apparently, we got to see the new van personally.
I don't know if anyone I don't know if there's any images or I don't even know if the thing's running yet.
It's coming.
It's
I've
coming.
heard. Yeah, it's coming.
Um. Well, I don't even know how to begin to close us out.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, like maybe that's how we close out an episode like this.
Cool. Um, as where are you from again?
Connecticut.
Connecticut. I got a lot of friends from Connecticut, but like, what was your first traveling circus episode
It
that you
was. Let me get the.
remember?
Okay, so I actually do remember this. It was East Coast hardcore real stuff. Hardcore real stuff. Let me see what number it was because that'll tell you when I started at okay, so 3.5. So I started paying attention in the third season because some of the kids in the grade above me who were this was literally like my first year stoked on skiing. They're like, "Oh, the Traveling Circus is at Ski Sundown." And I'm like, "Who the hell's the Traveling Circus?" And I didn't go that day, but afterwards, you know, whenever the video came out, I watched it. And I'm like, "Oh, damn, that's what I missed that day." And ever since then, I'm like, "Oh, this is sick. Like these guys just come like to my home mountain and do like the coolest thing I've ever seen."
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more important for professionals or people to interact with local kids, or just them to see it on TV and
Mm.
what's trending?
Oh, that's good. I think the in person component is good to a degree. You know, there's a saying, "Never meet your heroes." Like, you know, you catch Andy or Will on a bad day, and you might like be like, "Damn, these guys suck. Like this whole thing's a charade. They're not
Oh,
stoked on skiing." You know, so it is risky sending your athletes who aren't you know trained to deal with the public out into the world to represent your company and represent the whole.
that's
Uh,
a lot of liability on that person that could totally just sabotage you. And I highly recommend you should keep all your kids away from Andy. No, I'm joking, because he's gonna be the best dad if he ever will be one. I think he will be.
Yeah. So I think that it's when done right, interacting with the public is I mean, it's probably the best thing that a company could have their athletes do, but it does come with its risk of, you know, maybe your athlete's an asshole and perhaps him interacting with kids isn't the best idea.
So when Lion signed on Tom Wallish, I was kind of pissed because it's just like they give all this money to Tom Wallish. Um, over the last couple of years, Tom is fucking amazing. Like he's a genuine nice person, and not just saying that to like weigh his ego. Like it was super cool because like I did not expect that for him, but like he was in one of those earlier episodes, and like he just loves skiing, and that's like what I think Traveling Circus and Line and what I and we represent is just like we love skiing.
Mhm.
So follow your dream, have fun, and if not, do whatever you can to be happy.
Word. You want
Word.
to close out on that, or you got any more
Yeah,
questions?
that I think that's a good one to close out on. Questions? Yeah, I could ask you more, but
No,
I think that's
I think that's
legit. Man, thank you for making this happen tonight because otherwise I was just like over time I was like the more I anticipate it, the more I will quantum physics the ideas of questions, which does no one any good.
yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure.